cinema. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Kevin Zwicker from Fast Count coming at you. And then before I get into this video, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out in more ways than you even know. Plus, it's free. So in tonight's episode of Friday Night Smackdown, we saw something that we rarely ever see in the WWE and rarely ever see in wrestling in a whole. We saw a segment between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, the two biggest stars in the company today, not backstage, not in the middle of the ring, but on the 50-yard line on Georgia Tech's football stadium. And this was shot in cinematic style. This was something that was so cool and so interesting to see. Ever since Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn have got the boot and kicked out of the WWE, we've seen them try new different things on how they present wrestling. We've seen different camera angles. If you remember that Logan Paul spot that we saw that had the drum shot where they did a 360 view of him, we've seen them go from backstage through the gorilla to the ramp. That's something that we never saw previously before. And this segment that we saw tonight, it is rare that I ever say something was done perfectly when it comes to wrestling, but this was one of those rare moments. Every single second that these two guys were shown on the screen for this segment felt like it meant something. When it came down to the facial expressions, when it came down to the way that they shot it, when it came down to the way that these guys arrived to the stadium, everything was flawless. And I know people are going to sit there and say I'm glazing, but it was just so freaking awesome. So we get this view of the Atlanta skyline, right? And we see these cavalcades of black Escalades heading into the stadium, heading to the field, and we see Roman Reigns pop out. And we see him standing right in the middle of the 50-yard line on the Georgia Tech logo. And then we see this white Dodge Charger pull up, and we see Cody Rhodes come out of there, and we see these guys going face to face, and then we get this 360 shot of the stadium and just different angles of these two guys. As we know, these two guys are going to be teaming up at Bad Blood to go against the Bloodline, the new Bloodline that they have, and it is something that, like I've said in previous different videos, could have some backlash or repercussions for Cody Rhodes going forward. But this angle, we see these two guys going back and talking about their roots in the Georgia area. As we know, Roman Reigns played football at Georgia Tech for a few years, and we know that Cody Rhodes is from Georgia. So this was just one of those back and forth type of programs where we see these two guys discussing their roots. We see them talking about their past, how they've clashed in previous different spots. And then we get down to the nitty gritty. We see this arc in Roman Reigns' character that ever since he's kind of returned, it's been hinted at, but we finally have seen it actually verbalized. This is a guy who previously for the past 4 years was the guy who was this unmovable force. He was this brick wall that no matter how somebody was getting hot, no matter how many competitors were thrown his way, they were always going to get stopped because Roman Reigns was that force that was unpenetrable. And now we're finally seeing this guy who even Cody Rhodes talked about how he called it. This is a guy who's lost everything. This is a guy who lost his championship. This is a guy who's lost his bloodline. This is a guy who's lost the Usos. This is a guy who lost the Ula Fala. This is a man who has been broken. This is a guy who was on top of the mountain and is now on the bottom. And we see Cody Rhodes address that, and we see the facial expressions that these two guys were giving off. And it was just amazing, man. And we see Roman Reigns calling out Cody Rhodes, saying that once this is done, once all of this is done, he is going to reclaim what is his championship, his WWE, his basically perch that's on top of the mountaintop. And we see Cody Rhodes have to remind him that all of these things that he was talking about that was his, that he ran, it's not the same WWE or the same program that it once was. And all of these things that he's claiming to be his are no longer his. And we see this brief moment where Roman Reigns is going to walk off the field and Cody Rhodes is in his way. And the last bit of dialogue that these guys dropped was perfect. We see Roman Reigns tell Cody Rhodes that he's in his way. And then we see Cody Rhodes step aside, and then we see Roman Reigns say, You're in my way in life. And then we just walk off, and that's the end of the segment. And like I said before, this is perfect, man. It's really setting things up nicely for when we are eventually going to get this Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns 3. It is really setting things nicely to where we could possibly see how things are going to break down in Bad Blood and how these two guys are going to coexist. I know that that's a storyline that's as old as time, how these two people are going to coexist, but this really feels like one of those moments where you have these two mega stars and they're going down two separate paths, but for some reason they have to intertwine to get a common goal accomplished. And it's just really interesting, man. So let me know, what did you guys think of the segment? How did you feel? I'm also going to be doing a post show, hopefully with Robin Lundberg, after Bad Blood when it's finished. So be on the lookout for that. Please remember to like and subscribe. Like I said before, it really helps the channel out. I am Kevin Zwicker,